Welcome back, gents. Forgive the wind. We're out here with another range trip with one of my home-built ARs with the McGowen precision barrel. Focus. Come on, you can do it. There we go. And so there's some issues going on here. Let's go for a walk. I am the only one on the range. We're good. Everything's unloaded. Before we talk about this load development, let's talk about some of the tinkering I did the other day. So I tested the other two barrels. So I tested a total of 3 barrels, 3 different uppers. Not that I find the upper really makes much difference. Anyway, all of them fired this minimum charge here, 26 grains of BLC-2. And let's take a look at what they look at. Now keep in mind, this is tinkering I did the other day. People have been out here since. You can clearly see there's some different caliber bullet holes there, but I'll point out where you need to ignore. So right there's the first group. That's the Shaw barrel. Good job. This is Ballistic Advantage. Ignore those ones down there. However, include this one. It's right there. That's, it's a little bit over 2 inches there. Let's go ahead and say it's 2.5. But including that, it opens up to about 4. So yeah. Down here though, here's the McGowen. Ignore those. And that is about 2.5 inches. You'll notice it's less shots. It's because I had to use that for sighting in the scope. I kind of reset it. But anyway, yeah, that's 2.5 inches. Roundabout. That's not good. That's not good at all. Anyway, let's get to our load development. Okay, so this is our load development, BLC-2 going up in 0.2 grain increments, Remington 7.5 primers, Lapua brass, and mag length. And this is my McGowen precision barrel. Whew. So again, this is my lowest charge. Let's take a look here. Yeah, so about the same. 2.5 inches, we'll go ahead and call it. Yeah, it's on a diagonal. We'll say 2.5. So about the same size group. Changes the point of impact from our original one though. I'm blaming that on the fact that it's a different day and it's 15 degrees cooler. When we bump up in charge, we see a return to form with the point of impact, maybe a little bit more to the right, but this is definitely a much more trustworthy group. We have that outlier there, still makes it about a 2.5 inch group, maybe a little bit over, But that is a huge shift in the point of impact for just 0.2 grains. Here, we return maybe a little bit lower, but this is a much tighter group. This looks like what we did with the Shaw, which makes me kind of happy because, again, this is why we reload. We're unlocking the maximum potential of our barrels through our load development. And it looks like I actually managed to match the Shaw. That makes me happy. We'll have to see how big that actually is. It's definitely over 1 inch, but we'll have to take a picture of Range Buddy to know for sure. Here, similar point of impact, maybe a little bit more to the left, but it's similar, but the group is breaking up. So I'm okay with that. The final charge, yikes, look at this. Actually, take away that outlier. It's a little over 1 inch, 1.5 inches, we'll say, but that's a lot of horizontal stringing. And we do have room to work up a little bit more. Maybe it might shape up and maybe it might form like a nice tight group. But honestly, 26.8 grains, could I fit it? Sure. Did I have to tap my cases to make sure that things weren't compressed? Yes. But that's about the upper limit. And honestly here, I feel like we did kind of find some sort of harmonic node. It's definitely somewhere around here, which is a little bit unusual. But then again, this barrel's unusual. It still has leads going up to the neck chamber. If you guys watched my first video, I'll put a link somewhere in the description, but also up here. So anyway, some final thoughts. I'm really glad we were able to shape things up and get it to match the Shaw. But of course, now I'm really curious. Can the Shaw do even better with some load development? Sure, let's go ahead and do it. I'm also going to work up the Ballistic Advantage. Why not? However, instead of doing 10-shot groups, let us do 5-shot groups, because that way I can just come out and do it in one trip. This has definitely turned into quite the project. So what do we have here? We have 100 rounds loaded up, where I'm basically redoing this load development that I did for my McGowen Precision barrel. Long story short, they must have had a worn reamer when they did the chambering for that barrel, because my free bore still has rifling in it. Well, some of it does. But I've been testing its accuracy regardless, and it's not bad, but it's not terrible. The other day, I did a load work up here, and it wasn't terrible again, especially for 10-shot groups. But the best that I mustered was just a random group that I did out of this Shaw. Because the day before, I took one load, so just one charge, and fired out of all 3 barrels. And I looked at the results, and they were quite different. So now, I want to put them all on the same playing field, do a load workup, the exact same load workup, right here, with each of them. I said, I've already talked about this the other day, so you should already have the information. Let's talk about the different barrels, or rather the different uppers. Now, my McGowen Precision, that was an Aero Precision Enhanced upper with the corresponding rail. It also had an adjustable gas block. I find that those don't really affect accuracy or precision much at all, even when it comes to where you're going to be resting your front rest in regards to either having a bipod or sandbag like this one. Moving on though, where they're all similar is that they're all 20-inch stainless steel barrels. They're all chambered in 223 Wild, and they all have a 1 8 twist with a rifle length gas system. Where they differ, definitely, is the muzzle device. So my McGowen Precision, no muzzle device, no threads for it even. I did not want any, because I wanted something that, I don't know, I just don't like the idea of a muzzle device, honestly. But still, when I bought the Shaw upper, which they built all themselves, and then they shipped to me because it's kind of custom, I wanted to try messing with a muzzle brake. So this is their titanium muzzle brake. And you know what? I don't mind it, but it definitely doesn't make you friends when you're out here on the range. And then this is from Bear Creek Arsenal, but this is a Ballistic Advantage barrel. So this is just a basic flash hider. So I just basically reused it. That's it. Also, notice black barrel, it's been nitrided. So nitrated barrel, and then 2 plain stainless steel barrels. Similarly, there is going to be a difference in the optics. They're all Bushnell, so similar to having a 20-inch stainless steel barrel. However, this is their latest nitro scope. Let me focus. And so this is the one that is, I believe, 6 to 24 power, very similar to their Match Pro, but it's second focal plane. So the crosshairs are very, very fine. And actually, I kind of like it better. This is an earlier version of one of their nitro scopes. However, it is, I believe, 5 to 20. So slightly less zoom. It is second focal plane. The crosshairs are a bit thicker because it's older. Otherwise, though, I don't find that these newer scopes, these better scopes, necessarily give me a huge advantage in terms of accuracy. But if this does happen to do a little bit worse today, we can kind of give it a little bit of a handicap, I guess I'll go ahead and say. We'll use that as a little bit of an explanation. But at the end of the day, it's how well we're doing with this load workup, and it's going to be comparative anyway. I imagine that some groups are going to do better than others, but we shall see. That's why we're having this sort of fun. But ultimately, the goal is seeing how these compare to that McGowen Precision barrel. I kind of feel like I jumbled my words there a bit. I guess really what I'm trying to focus on is, you know, some of the glories of being a hand loader, right? I think I said it best earlier the other day when I said that we try to unlock the greatest potential accuracy out of each barrel. And we know that each barrel, no matter how similar, is really quite different from one another. And they do require slightly different loads from one another. And I want to showcase that, but ultimately, Want to see how justified I'll be in sending this McGowen barrel back. I probably will do that, but maybe that's talking too much. Anyway, let's get to shooting. We're going to have to switch to voiceover mode because while firing these groups out at the range, more and more people were filtering in, and when it came time to check targets, I only had time to snap some quick pictures. So we're going to look at those pictures in real time and do our group analysis there. So we did get to fire our groups though. So first there's the Shaw, then there's the Ballistic Advantage. Let's take a look at a more clear, closer image. So this is the Shaw, and reading them from left to right, up to down, we're going from lowest to highest charge. And if you have a keen eye and a good memory, you'll already see something up. This first charge, this 26 grains of BLC-2, it doesn't look exactly like what we fired on that first day. In fact, this 26.2 grains here, the second charge, looks a lot more similar to it, even with its diagonalness here. I have an explanation for that. May not be the explanation, but it's an explanation. The change of the weather conditions. This is my third day being out here, and the first day was hot. It was pretty close to 90 degrees. This is a good 15 degrees cooler. To me, it makes sense, without getting into the nuances of like barometric pressure and all the other fun stuff, that adding a little bit more powder charge to make up for that loss in velocity helps us return to form. I mean, after all, bench rest shooters, they don't preload their ammo. They load it same day. This is part of the reason why. We're seeing this right here in real time. Moving on, bumping up in charge, things go bad really quick. This looks like vertical stringing to me, and you know, I almost want to say that these flyers are on me, but look at the next step up. They line up almost perfectly with these other ones. And otherwise, the barrel is shifting more to the lower right as we go up in powder charge. Because look at this final one. It almost looks like we're getting this double grouping here. And actually, this outlier here is not too much further than these ones there. So that is just the natural progression that this barrel is taking as we go up in charge. I think it's interesting because I remember with the McGowen Precision barrel, the best group ended up being that third charge, 26.4 grains. For this barrel, it's amongst the worst. However, the maximum charge, 26.8 down here, like with the McGowen Precision barrel, I remember getting pretty bad horizontal stringing. Okay, maybe my memory is remembering it being worse than what it actually was. But either way, horizontal stringing is not desirable. And the fact that I'm seeing double grouping here with this barrel tells me that that is definitely a charge we want to stay away from. Now, here is Range Buddy. This is that best group we got with that Shaw. And I was right, a little over an inch. Not bad. I mean, that's nothing to brag about, but in comparison with the rest of the groups that we were getting, this is pretty good. It's going to be more important later, too. Moving on to the Ballistic Advantage barrel. Now, again, look here at these first two groups. This first group is definitely different from the first one we fired on the first day. But when we take a look at the second charge, when you look at the group shape, I'm seeing something there because there's that horizontalness to it, and we saw that with that first group. This is definitely a much better group though. It's still pretty bad. I mean, that's still 2.5 inches. Much better than the 4 from before, but still, it's bad. Note, though, on this first group, like you have this tight cluster in the middle. Saying tight cluster was wrong, but that's where the majority of the shots hit. Same with this first group, but then we have these gross outliers. Same with this second group. So for me, right here, right now, it looks like this lowest charge is where we don't want to be with this barrel. However, similar to the McGowen barrel, the third charge ended up being the best. It is a little bit of a shift to the lower right for the point of impact. Not by too much though, because we have this weird outlier over there. When we move up in our next charge, 26.6 grains, things are spreading apart, but the point of impact is kind of staying in that area. The mean radius of things though is definitely going downhill. Like, things are getting worse. And then when we get to our final charge, we can see here we have this outlier way off to the left. which, you know, that actually might be on me, because even though this lower charge, you do see something a little bit to the left, and that does correspond slightly with this other one. This one's just going further out. I don't know. I think I might have to claim this as a flyer myself. So this group here, that actually isn't too bad. That is about 1.5 inches, but we still have to claim this one. I still shot it, so it opens up to, again, about 2.5 inches. Let's compare these two groups. The first picture will be the Ballistic Advantage barrel, and the second will be the McGowen Precision barrel. Remember that the McGowen barrel has a manufacturing defect, and the Ballistic Advantage barrel costs about 1/3 less and is in a slightly less capable platform. While the end-to-end precision of the McGowen is better, the mean radius is worse, so one could argue that the precision is actually worse. I'm not going to make an argument either way, but I am going to reinforce something I said earlier. The Ballistic Advantage barrel is part of a cheaper, quote-unquote, lower-tier platform. I think it's fair to say they performed on par with each other. Actually, in the grand scheme of things, all the barrels performed remarkably similar to one another. Sure, some of the most accurate loads differed from barrel to barrel, but that is par for the course, and that's something I'm hoping to showcase when I do this sort of testing. And let's take a step back for a moment. This video started as me testing the classic combination of BLC-2 and a 55 grain bullet to see how much this barrel with the manufacturing defect would perform, but it grew into how the same lobe development would be different for the 3 different barrels that have 3 different uppers with 3 different muzzle device treatments. Well, one doesn't have one, but still, that's the point. It's by no means comprehensive, but there's still a lot to learn here, and I hope you guys enjoy it for what it is. On a parting note, my McGowen barrel is, as of the publishing date of this video, en route back to the company. I look forward to testing its replacement in the future.